The Jacksonville Jaguars will be on the clock with the first overall pick in the 2022 NFL draft. Now, here, round one, pick one, so many options. Like, I feel like you have so much pressure on you as an NFL organization. If you have the first overall pick, as to like, who do you choose? And like, when you look at a team like Jacksonville, they already have the franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Hopefully, they can see him through that. But at this point, who do you take? A lot of people have pondered edge rusher, but here, round one, pick one. In one of your latest mock drafts, you haven't taken Travon Walker, defensive lineman out of Georgia, in which many people say that, hey, this could actually be the pick that does happen.
Yeah, for sure. And real quick, Brandon, have you ever met MMG living in Lansing? I actually went to high school with him. He was in my graduating class. Matt Maher, he was in my graduating class. So he's made it big, man. He's the Madden Mobile god. I remember playing Madden Mobile during my online classes in the library every day back in high school. So fun to see him doing well. But to the Jaguars pick, Trayvon Walker, man, it's looking like it's going to be Walker or Hutchinson. Me personally, I'm not 100% on either of these selections for different reasons. I don't think the ceiling is high enough with Hutchinson. I don't think the floor is high enough with Walker. I think especially with Walker, he's an athletic freak, all right? 6'5", 271, 35-inch arms, ran a 4.51, explosive, insanely powerful, can rush from any alignment, right? But at the same time, you look at the hand usage, he's really just got that bull rush, that two-arm extension, and that's about it right now. Not a lot in that palette. So I would feel very precarious taking him number one overall. I think there's still a lot of refinement to undergo. But I think if we're looking at Trent Baalke, what has he done in the past? He's bet on these insane athletes that he can develop them. And I think ultimately, if it's between those two, that's what I would want to do as well, if they have the higher ceiling. Because Aiden Hutchinson, I like the player for sure. I do think there's some serious limitations that are getting overlooked right now. The lack of bend, the upright play style, the lack of elite burst off the line too. He's a great prospect, but not an elite one, not a number one overall pick. Trayvon Walker, at least at his max projection, could be that. There's a ton of work to do before he gets there. But if it's down to those two, I'm taking Trayvon.
I'm going to throw away the Michigan bias and say that you should love Aiden Hutchinson number one. But honestly, it does seem like Trayvon Walker is starting to get a little bit more play. I know he's shot up in the odds for all the sports books that are out there being a potential number one overall pick. Like you talk about, like Trent Baalke really just seems like he's that person when you're playing Uno that has a handful of like draw fours and wilds and reverses. Like he is the wild card of this entire draft. And like he has the previous history. We're like, hey, we really don't necessarily know what this guy is going to do. But honestly, Trayvon Walker seems like a really good piece. And it's a team that needs just a lot of depth and a lot of help at other additional places. And we sit here going with the defense again, sitting here in round 2, pick 33. Might be one of the best secondary players actually out there, despite the second round grade in this one. And that's going to be Lewis Cine, the safety out of Georgia, hard-hitting guy. He plays downhill really well. I know when he's going up against Alabama, you see him read it and attack and just take out Brian Robinson, who obviously had the size difference on him. Cine seems like a guy who could really help kind of reset the tone on this Jaguars defense.
Yeah, for sure. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. The term that Ali loves to use for him is diagnose and destroy. Diagnose and then come downfield and just lay.
It sounds like a Metallica song.
Honestly, it does. But hey, it's also Lewis Cine's tape, man. He is jamming out there, and he's not just jamming the music, but jamming, running backs in the backfield, wide receivers at the slot, right? He's a very versatile, physical player. And I do think that, his overall profile kind of goes overlooked with how good it is. He's a top 10 player for me in the running for my safety one. I look at all the traits, 6'2", 199 pounds, will probably be over 200 with the NFL training regimen, 32-inch arms, but ran in the 4.3s, has very good explosiveness numbers, a broad jump over 11 feet. I think a 37.5-inch vert, 36.5 up there, and it shows up on tape. He's explosive, gears up very quickly, can close ground in an instant. But beyond that too, you see him as a safety, you're playing too high a lot, single high. You got to manage space on that back end. You got to position yourself effectively so that either you're not tested, or if you are tested, you can respond quickly, promptly. And Cine is very good at that. He's very intelligent and very composed with his spacing. He moves effortlessly with throttle control, hit fluidity, and then acceleration through his transitions. So really a very solid player on top of the, astronomical upside that he does have. I think if you're Jacksonville, get him in there. He can play too high. He has the range for single high. He can be a big slot with his fluidity and physicality. He can just be that all-around safety on the back end and a playmaker for your defensive unit. I'm very high on him. But I do think, with the safety, positional value is always an aspect of it, the conversation. They tend to fall in the draft. So I think he's more, I would take him mid-first round. I think he's more of a late first round, early second guy. If he does get to this point, he's the best player left on the board if he gets to the second round. And I think you got to take him if you're Jacksonville.
Round 3, pick number 64, adding to an already young defense. They get a little bit younger, which gives them a little bit more wiggle room, but an impact player, in my opinion, coming out of Wyoming, and that's Chad Muma, linebacker there. Now, obviously, we've seen some other Wyoming linebackers in the last couple of years. I mean, for example, take a look at Logan Wilson being one of those guys, and even Logan Wilson said, like, hey, this dude is an athletic freak. We talk about rasshole. Chad Muma's a rasshole.
He is. He is. I think he had a RAS, if I can pull up the number here. It was pretty high. I know he tested very well in the explosiveness numbers, had a 40-inch vert. So we can get right here.
40-inch vert. Oh my god.
40-inch
That's
vert,
ridiculous.
man. 9.78 RAS. So our good friend Kent Lee Platt, math bomb, doing calculating for us. But yeah, around 6'2", 3/4, 239 pounds. Ran a 4.63, had 27 bench reps. And then again, that 40-inch vert, 10.9 broad. I mean, this guy has all the athletic traits, and it shows up on tape. He's very explosive out of his stance, gears up insanely quickly. But he's pretty agile too, pretty light on his feet, not a stiff lateral mover. That's one thing that I look for in linebackers. A lot of times, you know, especially in coverage, if you're playing in space, you can't be stiff laterally because that can delay your responses and let receivers get a step on you if they're crossing over the middle of the field. But Chad Muma is very good at matching those routes, but especially in the box too, very instinctive, can flow to the ball, very good moving laterally and kind of sealing off the edge on those outside runs. But he's more than willing to stack and shed blockers in the middle of the field, kind of sift through congestion and make those tackles in open field too. I think, you know, he's in the running. He's one of the top linebackers in this class. And I don't think the gap between him and Devin Lloyd is very, very far at all. I think if you're Jacksonville, get Chad Muma, who has that processing, that athleticism, not a lot of holes to poke in his game. Could improve in coverage a little bit. Sometimes he lets receivers slip into his blind spot, can improve that, you know, not awareness, but I think just an understanding of, you know, where you are and positioning. But I do think he has the instincts and the IQ to combat that and improve that. And then you look at the physical traits, man. I mean, the RAS speaks for itself. This guy has it all. And I think if you're Jacksonville, you know, after losing Miles Jack, you need a guy who can kind of fulfill that role, being a coverage linebacker, maybe rotate to Mike on certain downs. And I think Chad Muma is exactly that.
You know, the Johns, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're up pretty here soon. Again, about 5 picks later with the 70th pick in the 3rd round. It's a pick they actually got from the Carolina Panthers via trade. And I think it's a really interesting one because look at the Carolina Panthers. They made a lot of moves this offseason, especially trying to bring in someone like Christian Kirk on a deal that a lot of us kind of thought kind of reset the market and was a little bit an odd one in terms of how they spent their money. We actually had them adding in a little bit more additional wide receiver help, in this case, in Tyquan Thornton, the wide receiver out of Baylor. And look, apparently these Baylor guys are just built a little bit differently because these guys have been putting up some incredible combine performances. Go back a couple of years ago to Denzel Mims, Tyquan Thornton this year being the fastest receiver actually in the NFL Combine. Ran, I believe it was a 4.28. What was like 4.21, I think, when they first flashed on the screen. It's like, no, I don't think that one was right. I think came in at the official 4.28. How do you see him kind of fitting with this kind of group that already has like a Marvin Jones? You have Christian Kirk on this team already too. You've got someone like a Laviska Shenault who was widely underused last year. Is this kind of like that field stretcher they initially thought they were going to get in someone like a DJ Chark?
Yeah, I think he could be that for sure. I mean, you look at the size is the first thing that stands out to me. A little bit more of a size threat than the other guys in this roster. I mean, he has over 33-inch arms, 6'2" and 3/8. Around, he's a little lighter. He weighed in at 180 at the combine, so he's definitely got that wiry frame. But I don't think it's a matter of durability. It wasn't really an issue for him in college.
Mm-hmm.
And then that 4.28 speed in itself is very valuable. And I mean, yeah, those Baylor guys are different, man. Kalen Barnes, 4.23. JT Woods was in the 4.3. So they know how to build up fast guys. And Tyquan Thornton is that. The speed shows up on tape. But not only that, you know, he is very quick to accelerate. Some guys like Treylon Burks is one, you know, still has very good long speed and explosiveness for his size, but does need a little bit of a runway to gear up. Tyquan Thornton doesn't really need that. He explodes very quickly upfield, can really make the most of those short spaces that he has and elongate space. And then when the ball's in the air downfield, very good catching instincts, really good body control, contortion ability, really good hands. I'd like him to get a little stronger in that department. He's very good at, you know, getting his hands on the football, but he can't always work through contact. So that's one thing that I want to see him improve on. Can refine his route running ability a little bit, but he does have the lateral twitch and the hip sync, I think, to be good there. And then he's a physical run blocker too. That's more of a bonus for a wide receiver, but you love it when they bring it, and Tyquan Thornton does. So I think looking at the size, the field stretching ability, but also you can use that speed in the short ranges on a little drag route, slants, you know, get open on the short ranges, get him the ball, and he can get yards pretty quickly with his ability to accelerate. So I really like the fit with the other receivers, how he plays off of them, and the upside that he has if he can become his max projection. It's very, very fun to think about.
Well, let's take a look at the rest of the Jacksonville Jaguars draft here and Ian Cummings' latest mock draft building up to the NFL draft. Take a look. Round 4, pick 106. Rasheed Walker, offensive tackle out of Penn State. You can never get enough offensive line help and tackle depth here for Trevor Lawrence to keep him upright. But then you get into a little bit of the later rounds. Rounds 5, they have 1 pick. In round 6, they have 4 picks, actually. And then they have 2 picks in round 7. Starting off with round 5, pick 157, Hassan Haskins, a running back out of Michigan, adding some other depth there behind Travis Etienne and James Robinson, obviously going to be coming off an Achilles injury. Will he be ready for the start of the season is a huge question. And then there's John Ridgeway, defensive tackle out of Arkansas. Plug in some more defensive interior guys here for them. Round 6, pick 188. This comes from the Seattle Seahawks. Brock Hoffman, another offensive lineman out of Virginia Tech. And then round 6, pick 197 from the Eagles, Joshua Zaidu, offensive lineman out of North Carolina. And then you get into round 6 again, their final round 6 pick here, right after where they just picked at 198 here, Sean Jolly, cornerback out of Appalachian State. They round things off here with James Houston and Braylon Sanders, and round number 7 here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you're a Jaguars fan, let us know what you thought of this mock draft down below. And when the Jags are on the clock at number 1, who do you have them taking?